Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I'm the voice and the astrologer behind Nonconformist Conscience, the YouTube channel, and the webpage. I also have a Facebook page that I just want to say, um, if you're wanting updates about when I'm doing a video or if I'm going to do a forecast, I would jump on there. It's literally the same as my YouTube channel, spelt the same way. There's just spaces in between the words. So find me on there. And also I want to interact more with people on there. Um, I'm also back to work. Like I've been doing clients, but I was sick for almost a month. Definitely have like a lot of karmic clearing things going on with my body. But sometimes whenever I um, have something go on, I want spaces filled. Um, Like next week, I have just a couple left and I will discount them. And so it's a good place to like jump on and see if you're someone who doesn't want to pay the full price or can't. I also will work with people on a sliding scale. I have no problem doing that, but it's a good way to book an appointment if you've been wanting one. And next week, I have a couple of spots filled that I'm just doing it for $75 because I want those spots filled. And I also felt like it would be cool to do it during the time that the eclipses are happening. So check that out, or you can also email me since I'm putting it out there. I made a video with Rav Shahal that I posted where we went over both of these eclipses that were in the eclipse portal eclipse season of the spring. We went over the Libra lunar eclipse and we went over the Aries solar eclipse. I'm gonna go more in depth over the Aries solar eclipse um, in the next week and whenever it's happening on the 8th, but I wanted to talk this week just a little bit about these energies of the Libra eclipse that are carrying over into this week and into next before the Aries solar eclipse is happening on the 8th. Because there's a few things that are happening um, in the in-between time, right? That I really feel are beneficial for us to look at and to work with. So if you want a more in-depth of me and Rav Shahal's um, take on these eclipses, check that video out. But for this one, I want to talk let's start with this Libra eclipse. This Libra eclipse it happened at, 5 degrees Libra, and it was a lunar eclipse. And so it's like signaling to this 6-month cycle of us wrapping up these dynamics that we have been dealing with for quite some time. If you watch my videos, you've probably heard me talk so much about Pluto and Aquarius and the nodal axis of Libra and Aries. And so I just want to like touch on this a little bit before I go into more of the energies that are happening this week that are, precipitating from this. And they're things I was looking at that I'm like, man, I really want to make a video on this. I feel like it could be utilized so constructively and consciously. I feel like the eclipses get such a big, you know, uh, a lot of people commenting, talking about them, but it's like, what's in between these? Like, there's more meat there within the astrology that I want to touch on. But in order to talk about that, let's just go back to this Libra eclipse. So the Libra eclipse happened at 5 degrees this past Monday. And the eclipse was ruled by Venus in the sign of Pisces. And so the lunar eclipse is really like it's signaling that there's something here that we want to throw off because it's the sun and the moon opposing each other. It's in a full phase opposition, and that full phase means something has come full circle since the initiation of the last new moon in Libra. And it's potent, it's energized. It's like, this is a time, oh, my nose tickles. This is a time to really understand the karmic closings that are wanting to happen and to take shape. Whereas the solar eclipse is really speaking to the solar energy of starting something new, shining a light on something, a new phase within our own evolutionary growth. It's like where karmic beginnings are happening. And this is what is symbolizing the karmic endings. So, because it's a Libra lunar eclipse, there are things that karmically are wanting to come to a close, and it's dealing with all things Libran. So Libra can be misunderstood a bit. It can be like, our romantic relationships. And if you've listened to me on here, Libra is not just about our romantic relationships. They are about our one-on-one personal relationships. That can be your relationship with work, with a kid, with another family member, with your friends, with your work friends. It can be your relationship to Gaia, it can be your relationship to source, it can be, any type of spiritual relationship that you're cultivating. But when we're looking at this, Libra is often misunderstood and on the other hand, as being someone who, like, if they have a big Libra signature, most, people in more traditional astrology would say, or if you read in like your little astrology books, it'll say that this is someone who's balanced and harmonized with life. And that is just, it's not true. It's someone who's working on how to balance and harmonize. It's where we face the extremes in our life. And I'm speaking from personal experience as someone who has a Libra moon. It is where we are facing the extremes. In true Libra fashion, we can overcorrect, right? We can have this extreme happen in our life, and it takes an extreme to counteract an extreme. And so Libra can be the pendulum swinging. We can sometimes overcorrect. And so this lunation, this eclipse can be about where we're really coming to understand where extremes and limits have reached the apex on an emotional level and on a relational level. And with Venus and Pisces ruling this, it symbolizes not only that, hey, the full moon, a full phase opposition, is saying we've got to compare and contrast in true Libra fashion to understand what we're needing to oppose or throw off. But it being ruled by Venus in the sign of Pisces is saying this is helping us to have karmic closures through the culminating of this, through understanding this. And so we will be working on this for the next 6 months. So for some people, this can be relationships ending. I know a lot of people have lost their animals lately. They that can be a Libra relationship. It kind of has a Virgo vibe as well, but it's still a one-on-one personal relationship. And if you're someone who's rooted in natural law, you're gonna see that that's a family member as well, and it's its own relationship. But I've seen it happen with people all of a sudden deciding that something's reached a limit within a relationship with their friends lately. This kind of signals this Uranian and Pluto and Aquarius function that's going on. This really runs the gamut, but yes, this can feel like crisis for some people. But the key is to remember that for evolution to proceed, we have to take responsibility for why. Like, sometimes bad things just happen and they're totally out of our control. But with evolution, if you look back on your life and you reflect and you think about maybe something so terrible or so traumatic, and you came out on the other side there can be this sense of gratitude around that really was uncomfortable and painful, but I learned so much about myself from that. And this is where this Libra eclipse can really bring us some medicine, some healing. If we take the time to look at, have there been extremes? Has the pendulum in my life, swung from one end to the other? Have I overcorrected? Have I overcompensated? Um, because that tends to happen whenever we're learning how to balance and how to harmonize. Pluto during this time, during the Libra eclipse, was trine to the uh to the Libra moon. Pluto in Aquarius in a um disseminating trine is like speaking to, there's some type of knowledge, right? It's also Aquarian, something from our higher mind can really help us understand and get to the bottom of why. Why is something needing to close? Why is something needing to end? What am I? And it gets us ready for this Aries new moon solar eclipse. Like, what? There's something here that's wanting to start. So there's this culminating process that's going on. And where over the next few weeks, we can really feel like information is being imparted or disseminated to us through us doing some self-reflection. And, Venus was still in the sky, very close to Saturn, but in a new phase conjunction to Saturn. And Saturn in Pisces has very much been about us restructuring our consciousness. Like, it's looking at Saturn as our conditioning, how we have been conditioned um to go about doing life. It's, you know, what were you taught? What were the values? What were the things that were conditioned into you? And Saturn in Pisces is saying, let's go to more universal, timeless Pisces type of energy and really dissolve these old structures and boundaries within of where we've been conditioned that are more man-made and feel like chains that are binding us. And so with Venus in a new phase to Saturn during this lunation, it was very much about, yes, old ways of understanding, listening, being in relationships to others, being in relationship to ourselves are dissolving. So a restructuring of our consciousness can take place. And like but it's also, what are your needs and what are your values? Like, are they timeless in nature, Venus and Pisces, or are they more in that Saturnian man-made construct? And to reflect, Saturn wants us to always reflect, wants us to reflect on, what's my responsibility? What's my part in this? How can I take accountability for my own growth, for my own healing, which is a function of Pisces and Virgo? And as things are culminating through understanding how we've structured reality through those conditionings and how maybe it's created imbalances or extremes in our lives, it can also be, with this new phase conjunction with Venus, about how do I really access the inner divinity within and what I really value on a soul level so I can start to harmonize with life in a very natural way. So it's understanding more timeless values and needs and then applying them to our relationship to self. Venus and Pisces is also ruling Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus. So Uranus and Taurus is the ruler of Pluto in Aquarius, who's in that disseminating trine to this lunar eclipse. And what to me this symbolizes is, as we have the courage to access our emotional body, Pisces wants us to go deep, deep. Sorry, my allergies are going crazy. deep within our emotions and to access those waters that where maybe it feels nebulous or we don't really have a full grasp. It's like the medicine within that is to flow into that, to go into that, to be courageous and to know that there's divinity in where we've been hurt or wounded. We don't always have to feel victimized about it. There's beauty in our pain sometimes, not from a suffering standpoint, but from, hey, there's something here on my evolutionary journey that I am supposed to be learning about. And that's part of that Venus Saturn conjunction as well. About like understanding that there's a responsibility whenever these things go on or they come into focus in my life and I'm understanding them. There's something here emotionally that I can really um access that maybe I wasn't able to before. And so it helps this culmination process and the throwing off, but also it helps to start a new journey of having a more deep relationship to self, which then will help us change our inner vibration. And then that will help us to really be able to reflect that in all of our relationships, thus creating more harmony within life. And this goes back to Uranus and Taurus ruling that Pluto, which is trining that moon, and Uranus and Taurus being ruled by this Venus. This is a time that if we use objectivity and we self-reflect, not only do we get to liberate and transform, but Pisces is about, whereas Aquarius and Uranus are about transformation. This is like Uranus and Taurus is a radical transformation of our relationship to self by doing this work, by doing our own evolutionary work as it unfolding to be courageous even in uncomfortableness. But Venus, Pisces, not Venus, but Pisces is about transcendence. And transcendence is about transcending limitations, where this could be a time for some of us where we're feeling like we're hitting walls or there's a limitation or something's reached an extreme or, all of these things. This has the ability, especially the next 2 weeks, whatever we're realizing has the ability to help us transcend these limitations. As long as we pull in the Virgo, the counterpoint of Pisces, to take this step by step as it unfolds. And the Aries energy that's in here naturally in conjuncts Virgo. And so, in order to self improve Virgo and to transcend limitations, Pisces, in order to radically transform our relationship to self, we have to take the Aries initiative. We have to have the Aries courage. And then from Aries, the polarity is Libra. And in that Libra polarity, is the counterpoint of action. It's the reaction, the feedback that you get from another, from something external that helps us in very Virgo-like form. Take that information in and assimilate it to understand, oh, well, from that action that I took, created this Libra action. And then in Virgo, I get to self-improve and purge the things that I'm learning about myself that are no longer resonating, and through purging them it transcends those limitations. And this chart really speaks beautifully to this. Jupiter in Taurus, which is approaching Uranus, is also ruled by this Venus in Pisces. And this to me really symbolizes like maybe we should be reflecting on what beliefs that stem from our conditioning, because also, Jupiter is sextiling Saturn, which Venus is in a new phase conjunction to, and Venus is also sextile this Jupiter. So it's like saying, if you want to get in touch with your true nature in order to fortify your relationship to self, Taurus, all you have to do is the inner door is open. The inner guidance to source, Pisces, is open. There's a spiritual dynamic that happens when we have the willingness to go into our emotions and to be divinely guided through listening to ourselves and what our intuition is saying. And that's very much this Jupiter and Taurus. Jupiter can be our intuition, and Taurus is the ability to inwardly listen to ourselves. And so it's sextiling this Venus, and it's sextiling this Saturn. And so this sextile to Venus, which is in a new phase to Saturn, is if we're wanting to understand our personal truths, Jupiter, we need to understand what conditioned values or dynamics in our life, early childhood on up, society, religion, whatever, that has conditioned how we structure our reality and our consciousness, to see on the flip side, has this made me buy into beliefs that weren't true, especially about myself? Jupiter can be about beliefs as well. It can be about truth, and it can be about a belief. And that is they're very different. Jupiter is also about natural law. I love Jeffrey Wolf Green. He talks about how, a great way to put that is, you don't have to believe that if you put your baby on the highway, that it's wrong. It's true. It's wrong. Just like you don't have to believe the sky is blue. It's a naturally occurring truth, right? So there's this dynamic of really self-reflecting by utilizing that Saturn on where maybe some of our conditioning has created delusive, which delusions or delusiveness is Pisces, delusive beliefs, Jupiter, the distortion of this Pisces Jupiter dynamic going on about ourselves. And the call is to really self-reflect and follow our intuition and our gut, right? Because this is also dealing with a lunar eclipse on what feels accurate or true for me personally. May not be true for someone else, but what feels true for me? What is a personal truth of mine? What is a belief that I've been conditioned to believe? Because there's this other dynamic that I've been seeing lately with this Jupiter Pisces dynamic going on, is there are people who have really been, I've had tons of conversations with friends and then a few clients where they are feeling disillusioned by having this experience in life, thinking that it's going to create something. So they're giving it ultimate meaning, and it's actually creating a major imbalance in their life in true Libra fashion. And at the meat of it, the center of it, the bottom of it, is that their behavior around giving ultimate meaning stems from conditioned beliefs about themselves that then became self-fulfilling prophecies, which is like a Sag, Jupiter, Pisces, Neptunian dynamic. And so you can see in this chart or in the astrology that is being reflected that some people might be getting in touch with that. And they might be getting in touch with the extremes of giving ultimate meaning outside of themselves and realizing like that they feel empty. And so with Jupiter in Taurus ruled by this Venus in a new phase to Saturn, there's just this call to culminate those old dynamics and to really start to foster a spiritual connection with self. And it doesn't matter what stage of evolution that you're at. You can foster a spiritual connection with yourself through understanding and relying on yourself, and creating and developing an inner connection with your own soul sovereignty. And to me, this is really speaking to this chart. So moving on, the things that I wanted to talk about that are happening this week, since the Libra lunar eclipse, is that this was happening during this, but it is still occurring throughout this week, which is there is a yod happening between the South Node in Libra, its ruler Venus in the sign of Pisces, and then Jupiter in the sign of Taurus, that is also ruled by that Venus in Pisces. And it has the energetic vibration of segueing off of what I just was talking about. This South Node in Libra is like speaking to, there are so many things revolving around the past, and we're now coming to understand and discern. That's a great, beautiful word that we're meeting with Venus and Pisces, and that is pulling in that polarity of Virgo. But we're needing to discern and have discernment on these areas so that they can culminate and they can dissolve and new can start. And it does, it revolves around, have imbalances been created by giving ultimate meaning outside of oneself to something, a job, a paycheck, a relationship? And what are the beliefs attached to that? On a collective level, like, let's just like pan out from that. We can see in a bird's eye view how this is going on in the collective, that there are imbalances being created within societal structures. That's that Saturn close to Venus. Saturn's also in this yod, by the way, but I wanted to really mention Venus, but it's like, where have societal structures created massive amounts of imbalances within societies based on the man-made laws that have conditioned the values and the beliefs and what we're giving meaning to, that really aren't in alignment with natural law? That really, I feel like, sums up in a more generalized way this South Node yod with Saturn, Venus, and Jupiter. And so the access point, the way through these dynamics, because a yod can create crisis when it's triggered. Because what a yod is it's, if you don't know and you're just learning, it's in conjuncts. It's the South Node is in conjunct Saturn and Venus, which is 150 degrees. And also it's in conjunct Jupiter. So it's really interesting. Actually, Saturn and Venus are in conjunct the South Node 210 degrees, and then 150 degrees would be Jupiter. It's different phases, and I want to break this down, but they're both in conjuncts that are connected by a sextile, okay? And then I'll go back to that South Node, how it's like the point out. The in conjunct from the South Node to Venus and Saturn is what we call a full phase in conjunct. And a full phase in conjunct has like a Scorpio feel to it. So it's like this, how do we share our resources with each other? How do we merge resources? How do we view each other through the eyes of equality? And that goes back to this Libra South Node and looking at how that hasn't happened and how crisis is being triggered because of that dynamic. This is seen widely within the world right now. The delusions we've bought into values that are very man-made, Saturn and Pisces, that are creating delusions and crisis through the imbalances. these crises are now being triggered in order for, on a collective level, us to learn the lessons of how to create balance and harmony through really understanding how do we share resources. Pisces is like universal timeless law whenever it is naturally expressed. It's like, how do we do this in a way that's inclusive? Because that's another dynamic of Libra through the lens of universal timeless law and principles, natural law, is giving, sharing, and inclusion. So we're dealing with this on one end, and then the South Node being in conjunct Jupiter is in a gibbous phase. So it's, how do we self-improve upon this? How do we self-improve and purge these dynamics that have created these imbalances by expanding upon our own personal growth, our relationship to self, or expanding upon timeless values that are in alignment with natural law, Jupiter, natural law, especially whenever it's involving the natural resources of our land, Taurus. So we can see this in a broad sense that is wanting us to start on, getting us on more personal levels to think about this. And then on personal levels, we can see how this is wanting to manifest in our lives, especially if this is really hitting something in your chart. There could be crises that have been instigated or triggered, not to create suffering, but it's crisis has the ability to realign and recenter us. And when we're looking at it through a patriarchal view, we can look at it as it's something that we're deserving, that we're supposed to suffer, but it's really not. It's just a naturally occurring law. When we're resisting something, we're denying, especially when we're dealing with a Virgo feel like a gibbous inconjunct, it will trigger crisis in order to realign us with what actual reality is. And this is really symbolized with that Saturn being a part of this yawn. And so I wanted us to really start looking at how this is manifesting in the world. And then if it's manifesting in our own individual lives, whether we're seeing it with the people around us or if we're seeing something within ourselves. But really, this is about, how do I self-improve so that way I can be present in the world as an equal and view others the other way, instead of trying to overpower, underpower, or continuously having these types of cycles within my life where there's a power dynamic. That is something that I see can be really showing up for people to highlight where a Libra imbalance or extreme has been met. And the only way to really remedy this is to look at our expectations. And that's part of Libra. Like, what have we been conditioned to expect? What are our personal expectations? And with Jupiter and Taurus, it's how do we meet our own needs so we don't project those expectations onto others? So the other thing I wanted to talk about, because I've been talking so much, and again, this is going on this whole week, is I've been talking about Virgo a lot, and Virgo can be about self-improvement. It can also be about masochism, sadomasochism. I feel guilt, so I need to atone, or I feel guilty and I'm gonna be enraged and project that onto others. I think at some point in our lives, we've seen this go down. I see it so much with women that I work with, having this dynamic unfold in their lives time and time again. Virgo can also be about denying reality, or making excuses, especially in relationships, like only wanting to see the best in someone. I call it being Pollyanna all the time, like the proverbial rose-tinted glasses. And eventually, we experience, through denying that, in true Piscean fashion, disillusionment. So Juno, I just wanted to speak a little bit about Virgo. Naturally expressed, it's very much about self-improving and really being able to purge and purify habituations, especially on an emotional level within our lives. Like it can have this feeling of like, oh, why does this keep happening? Why do I keep doing this? And it's because it's wanting to be purified. So sometimes it takes what it takes. You have to continuously go through that until reality is really you're faced and confronted with it. Anyone with a really big Virgo signature, I don't think I've known anyone, I've worked with anyone who hasn't had that experience. But Juno in this chart is at 8 degrees Virgo. It's going to be at 6 degrees Virgo whenever the Aries eclipse happens. But this week, it's, during the Libra lunar eclipse, it was at 8 throughout this week. And next week, it only moves 2 degrees. It's retrograde. So there's a relive, repeat in order to resolve something. Juno can be about our partnerships and where we devote ourselves. I spoke about this maybe a month or two ago, but Juno, was Jupiter's wife, and in true patriarchal fashion, the myth is very patriarchal. It was written by a man, if we think about this, because men were the only ones allowed to write back then. But Juno, no matter what, devoted herself to Jupiter, no matter how many times he cheated on her, no matter how many times he went behind her back, or he lied, or he deceived her. She stayed with him. And at the end of it all, she became enraged and was known for being the enraged, hysterical, crazy wife who was jealous. So we can see if this is distorted. Right now, some of these dynamics can be coming up for people in their relationships. Not everyone. This will really be true if you have this hitting your chart, and there could be, you would have to look at the totality of your chart. But if this resonates, I really want to talk about this. Juno in our lives, when not naturally expressed, can be devoting ourselves to a relationship at all cost. Maybe you're in a relationship where the values aren't aligning, but you're staying with it, hoping that something else is going to happen or change. Or maybe you're devoting yourself in a relationship where someone doesn't listen to you, but you do. Or you're devoting yourself to a relationship where you're taking on more than a partner. In essence, it can be where we, in a distorted way, devote ourselves to some type of partnership where there's an imbalance, especially dealing with this astrology. Juno is opposite Saturn this whole week, Saturn and Pisces. So there can be people who are, again, being confronted with reality of whatever they've over devoted themselves to that was imbalanced. And the key with this opposition, because it's a full phase opposition, is that there's something that's needing to be opposed and thrown off. And when we bring in Saturn and Pisces, it is our delusional beliefs that are really stemming from how we've been conditioned to think. And I've seen this personally and with other people. If you grew up in a really traditional family or a really religious family, this will most certainly can be more reflected in your life, because the traditional family of a more patriarchal or religious nature can be where the woman listens to the man, or you're supposed to abandon yourself for the sake of the relationship. So it's really looking at all of this stuff that could be coming up for you and comparing and contrasting in order to throw it off, to oppose it. And that will help to dissolve the way that you've structured things before. And so I thought that this was a really prominent signature for this week and into the Aries solar eclipse as well. The way that Juno is naturally expressed in partnerships, and to me, Juno also reflects karmic contracts we have within our partnerships. I see that a lot of times. This is just my own personal observation, okay? But whenever it's naturally expressed, that's partnerships where there's interdependence. You can be you and I can be me, and I don't need you, but I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be. I don't have some type of dependency. Um, it's relationships where there's equality and giving and sharing and mutual shared resources. So it is totally based within giving, sharing, and inclusion on all levels of mutual respect, mutual giving, mutual hearing, mutual listening, all of that. So the other one I want to talk about is Lilith, original Lilith, the asteroid, okay? Not Black Moon. I want to make this clear. I feel like I need to start making this more clear. It is the asteroid Lilith, original Lilith. It's an actual physical body within the sky. It's what I use. My beautiful colleagues, I had the absolute privilege of a lifetime to study with some beautiful astrologers who are women who taught me all about this, and I'm still learning and discovering. But original Lilith is in a last quarter square to Saturn, and Lilith is in the sign of Sagittarius, and Lilith is the root, the essence of who we are on a natural soul level. You think about how Lilith would not submit to the patriarchy. She would not submit to Adam. She would not bow down to him to be viewed as unequal. So she preserved her natural essence. That is Lilith, the original wild woman. And how we view it in charts is Lilith champions for us to inwardly nurture and that fighting spirit within. So there's this nurturing process that then puts it out there. But it's also there's so many layers to this. I did a class on this actually. But original Lilith transiting is really speaking to our original root, okay, as a collective, and how our original root is originally rooted within the totality of nature, natural law, Sag. And so we are needing to, in true fashion, as Lilith is squaring Saturn and Pisces in a last quarter phase. Last quarter phase is like, that's where someone can absolutely resist, or they can just go for it and they throw off everything, right? And to me, with these energies, especially with this Libra dynamic of really wanting to resolve where imbalances have been created, Lilith here is like, who are you? What is your nature? On a personal level, it's like, who are you to your core, to your truth? And to throw off anything that has conditioned Saturn, you to think anything other than to know and know exactly who you are on a soul level. On a collective level, this is about, on a collective level, the need to throw off the delusions that have created distortions within natural laws. Natural law is not naturally distorted. It always stays the same, but we have a different viewpoint of what nature is. Just think about what, as humans, we're doing to this beautiful earth. It's about throwing off all of this and getting back to our nature on a collective level. And this is going to take time. This is not all of a sudden on a collective level, kumbaya happens. It takes extremes to counteract extremes, and Pluto's in Aquarius. There's definitely some stuff that's going to go down as a way to rebel against conditioning, which is essentially what Pluto and Aquarius wants us to do. But I wanted to speak on that because, you know, Lilith is ruled by this Jupiter. And so we can really see on a collective level, there's this strong signature for the land, the earth that we live on. And Sag is Gaia, right? It's part of the whole mutable cross. And Gaia is a living, breathing energy that is, you know, this beautiful planet. It's nature herself. And so there's this need to really come to understand where we have destroyed or created trauma, seeing as that Jupiter is approaching Uranus and Pluto's in Aquarius, where we've just, you know, distorted natural laws as human beings on a collective level, and what this is doing, and the need to throw that off. Okay. And we're going to have some people who definitely want to hold on for life because their value system is delusive by nature. But it's something that I wanted to bring up for everyone when we're looking at the collective. The last thing, well, on the 28th, Venus is going to sextile Uranus. So that's tomorrow. And that sextile is in a it's in a last quarter sextile. So this is like where we get to really apply what we've been learning about our values and needs as a way to have a more holistic approach and integration that can continue this transformation of our relationship to self. And so I wanted to speak about that. It's also about liberating from these old values that have been delusive and have affected our sense of self, our self-esteem, our ability to listen to ourselves, to rebel against that, and then to it helps us to dissolve these old dynamics of, again, how that might have created imbalances or disharmony in our own lives. And then on a collective level, just apply it in that way on what the collective is supposed to be doing as a whole. Does that mean that it's going to happen? No, again, all of a sudden, not everyone's going to just be like, oh, this is what we should be doing. That's really what the next 20 years has in store for us, is to revolutionize the collective and the society. But the last thing I do want to talk about is on April 1st, Mars in Pisces is going to oppose that Juno. So again, there's something that needs to be thrown off and opposed. To me, Mars and Pisces can be like anger at oneself, especially with Juno, of where we've denied reality. And so we can become angry at ourselves because of that. And how we need to really understand that anger points to something else. It can point to someone else wasn't listening to me and I feel an injustice has occurred. Anger can be about, I've abandoned myself, I've taken on the values of others, or I don't even know who I am anymore. There can be a lot that comes up with this Mars-Juno opposition as well. But what it can do is, as we come to understand whatever this dynamic could be, if this pertains to you, is that it can really help us discover new desires that are being birthed into our consciousness at this time from the experience of whatever's going on. And so it can start a cycle where we're meant to really listen to our inner voice, to access the inner divinity, and to act on our desires that are emanating from within. And so this is this week. And I know it's been a while. Again, I've been sick for about a month, and I just, every time that I am not able to do this, I have a lot of Virgo. I have a lot of stuff going on with my health. My face is puffier. Like it's just, I really, you can always see whenever I'm struggling with my health. I will lose subscribers or this or that. I have people email me. I've talked about this before, and that's fine. But the people who come back and they listen to this and they find value in it, um, of course I appreciate it, but it just warms my heart. Like, and so I just hope you feel my sincerity in that. I can get emotional kind of talking about this. I just want to help people, and this has been a lesson, and I was in true Virgo Pisces fashion, pouring too much from my own cup, and I got sick. So, um, I always want to interact with you guys. And I always love seeing new people come in and our clients, whether it's I'm tutoring you or I'm doing a mini reading or whatever. Um, and I am glad that I'm feeling better. I've just had a lot going on. And so I really appreciate those of you who have reached out or who have been positive or whatever. I feel like there's a sense of community, and I just love it. And some of you I wish I could like reach through and hug you guys. And especially with the things that are going on in the world, that feels really true. So yes, I just wanted to tell you sincerely, I appreciate all of you. Um, the other thing I want you guys to look out for is my really good friend B, who you can find her on um, Instagram or, all the social media. She goes by the name of the Zine Witch, and she's not an evolutionary astrologer, but I absolutely love and adore her. She advocates for astrologers with disabilities. She's neurodivergent, just like myself. She is an amazing, amazing astrologer in her own right. And her and I are going to be doing a video over this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. She has it in her own natal chart. They have it in their own natal chart, and they have had a lot of experiences with it. And so I thought it would be good for us to talk about it and to put it out there. I'll probably do another video where I go more into it through an evolutionary astrology lens. I'm going to dive into it a little bit with her as well, but I just, I also like putting people out there. If you know an astrologer, they don't have to have a huge following. Like, if you would like to see someone on my YouTube channel, let me know who, because I would love to collaborate and have conversations with other people. They can be unknown or not have a big following. I do not care about that. It's really about coming together and collaborating. So let me know. And, you know, as my oldest kid says, it makes me laugh. They say during like when I told them about the eclipse, they were like, hold on to your nipples. And so I feel like that's a good way to put it is, we're all here, we're all together, and we're all doing this thing at this time for a reason. And I want us to give each other grace and love and to emit that out without sacrificing our sense of self. We can all do that without sacrificing ourselves. And I want us to be gentle with ourselves. I think a lot of people are going through a lot right now. So I love you all, and I will see you soon. God bless.